Okay, so now I'm getting ready to burn the scales, and what I've done is I've gone on and drawn these reference lines on here, and you can see the lateral line here, and then these other lines are just reference for me to keep the scale straight. I've also drawn in the scales on the cheek. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get that a little closer here. I've got those drawn on, and I'll do those freehand because the scales on the cheek are kind of irregular. They're not uh, they're not a specific shape like the body scales are, so they're kind of irregular. So I'm going to freehand those, and I'll show you how to do that when I get to that. So, but anyway, I'm going to get the camera turned around here and get started on that. And give me just a second. I'm going to start on the non-show side. That way I can kind of get a feel and a rhythm going. Just a little hot. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. The scales on the change sizes on the top of the head, along the top of the back and top of the head, so I'll probably change sizes like above this line here. There's also a little section on the belly where they'll change size. So I'm going to go like to this line, and then also back by the tail they'll change size, like from here back. So when I burn, I'll only burn to that line with this particular size, and then I'll swap over to the smaller one for those. And I'm only going about one scale width from the lateral line. Because I'll do that lateral line all in one piece and then kind of stitch everything in else with it. Because it's important that lateral line stays straight, because that I have to burn that line into each scale along that line. And I made a special tip to burn that lateral line in, and I'll show you that in a minute when I get ready to do the lateral line. There's also one little area here where the scales stop, This is like a hard bony cartilage structure right through here. So the scales only go up to that. And you have to burn forward. It's a little harder to do. You have to really be watching what you're doing. I may extend those small ones up into here, so some of this will be covered up with epoxy putty. You know, I'll put the scale stamp without heat into the epoxy putty. You may notice too, I'm going to show you how I started this. When I started my row, I skipped a little section here. If you can see that. And then I come back and center those. I've seen people do it where they just doing it straight on with each other, and that's not accurate. It looks alright, but it's not accurate. I did it that way on the trout scale, but they're so tiny you can't see, and even on a trout scale they have a little bit of a gap there. So I'm trying to maintain that on here. Every once in a while I'll get a little bit of carbon buildup on there, and I'll take it and rub it off on a piece of scrap, or use a fine fingernail polish or fingernail file to kind of scrape it off a little bit. And I'll blend this in with the smaller one too as it gets up here closer to this. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Maybe one more right here on this big one. And I'll finish this off to the rest of the tail with the smaller one. So I'm going to come back up here. All right, now on this lateral line, I want to make sure I follow that straight. And again, I'll follow those. It'll follow it down to the base here with the smaller one. So the rest of these will curve just like that one did. All right. I'm going to stop there. And put the small one on and finish up the head and the belly and the tail here. Okay, I've finished the scales. There's a couple places where I messed up, where I got the temperature was too high on the pin. There's a place or two where I had to kind of jumble them up to get back in sync or get back in pattern, especially around the lateral line. But luckily, those little mistakes will be kind of hidden by the gesso coating and then the final paint. They'll still be there, but they just won't be quite as noticeable. You know, they're not all perfectly straight on the fish, but they're straighter than this. But on the cheek and gill cover, I see a lot of guys using the same tips that they're burning the body scales with on the cheeks, and that's not quite accurate. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can on these. I'm learning, so the more I do, the more I can carry over to the next one. I'll look at one and say, well, I should have done that different. And so, on the next project, I'll make sure, make a note of that and do it. But what I've done here to make them look irregular was I hand drew them on, and then I used a little flat burning rounded tip to hand draw these on, and I purposely did them irregular shape to give it that look like they are on a real fish. But anyway, what's left is I'll finish out this video by burning the pattern on the fins, and then off camera I'm going to glue the fins on, and I'll give it a sealant that I use. I use lacquer and lacquer thinner. I use a 50-50 mix, and I give it a couple coats, and then I'll set the eyes, and I use epoxy putty for that, and I'll use epoxy putty to blend in the fins to the body. So I'll do all that off camera because that's pretty self-explanatory, and it's also boring. I may show a little bit, and I've got it on a couple other videos. But after that, I'll probably start part 7 with giving it a coat of tour gesso, and then airbrushing the first base coats of color on, and then doing the finishing with the hand painting. So anyway, I'm gonna turn around and get started on putting these fins on, or burning the patterns in these fins, and I'll get the camera set up here and get started on that. Alright, what I'm using is just a little flat knife type edge, and it'll make these real fine little lines. You turn the heat up just a little bit, but it'll burn these fine little lines in. So we'll get started on this tail here. I'm gonna start on the non-show side. Let me move this light around. A little too hot. Alright, that lets you see the little kind of a broomstick, I call it, look. And then I'll take the edge of the knife and I just kind of touch it and jag, kind of give these fin edges just a little bit of a jagged. And I may burn in just a little bit of a, if that can be seen or not. Little splits, kind of simulating the tail. Sometimes the fins will split a little bit. So I'm just putting a few of those in here, and not going to go overboard with it. But I will just kind of barely touch it. Okay, that's going to wrap part 6 up for now. I finished the tail, and I'm going to do the other fins off camera. Actually, I've already done the pectoral fins last night, kind of experiment with it. But I'm going to wrap it up there, and I appreciate y'all watching. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below, comments or suggestions. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. And I'll see y'all on part 7.